All right, guys. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do the second book chat on screencast because my video camera, the SD card, ran out of space. So we just got done talking about the cellar, and now in the next few pages, the man and the boy are hiding. The man tried to teach his son how to, use the gun if the son thought he was going to be captured. And the boy was like, I can't do it. The man's like, you're going to have to do it. And then at the top of page 114, the man was like, what if the boy tries to do it and the gun doesn't fire? And like, well, it will fire, but what if it doesn't fire? And he's like, am I capable of, like taking a rock and hitting my son in the head if it doesn't work? Like, is there a part of me that I don't know about deep inside my soul? And he didn't want to think about that anymore, so he just kind of put it out of his mind. So for the next few pages, they're still just kind of hiding out. Like, they're too afraid to go anywhere or do anything. So they're just kind of hiding in the woods off the side. So at the end, or by the bottom of 115, they kind of start moving again. And I want to bring your attention in the middle of page 116, where the new paragraph starts. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It says, he awoke in the dark of the woods in the leaves, shivering violently. And the interesting thing about that sentence is it can be read two ways, because there's no comma, because of Cormac McCarthy. And I have a note here, like one of my book notes, and it says, the lack of commas in the first sentence makes it ambiguous as to who was shivering, the man or the leaves. So is it, he woke in the dark of the woods in the leaves, shivering, or he woke in the dark of the woods in the leaves, shivering violently. So, I mean, it can be like, are the leaves shaking? Is the man shaking? But he said he sat up and felt about for the boy. He held his hand to the thin ribs, warmth and movement, heartbeat. So, I mean, this is kind of symbolic. The warmth in this world comes from his son. And the rest of the world, it's described as cold and gray and, winter's coming and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, and it could almost be like a double play on words. Like, the warmth comes from the sun, like the sun in the sky, or the sun, his boy. So the sun's coming, the actual sun's coming up. And the man says, we have to keep going. So, they keep moving, and the next place they find, there's a barn, bales of hay. They see a house. He finds Kool-Aid in the middle of 119. It says, a packet of something, he blew away the dust. It was a grape flavored powder to make drinks with. So, I mean, that's another one of those things that the boys won't really know what it's about, but just kind of one of those leftovers from our world. They find some clothes. They find a box cutter. And kind of an interesting thing to note on page 120, it says he walked back out to the barn. He had a piece of cloth that he intended to use to collect seeds from the hay bales, but when he got to the barn, he stopped listening to the wind, the creaking of tin somewhere high in the roof above him. There was yet a lingering odor of cows in the barn, and he stood there thinking about cows, and he realized they were extinct. Was that true? Could there be a cow somewhere being fed and cared for? Could there? Fed what? Saved for what? So he's thinking, even if there was a cow out there somewhere, it probably wouldn't have lasted long because people need food. He sees a small little orchard full of kind of shriveled apples, but he picks up as many as he can. He sees some mason jars. I mean, it's just kind of him finding a bit of supplies here and there. But at this point, the man and the boy are still they're still starving, but he does uncover this concrete water tank, and he uses the mason jars that he finds in the kitchen, and he kind of creates like a filter, and he filters some water for them. And I mean, when it comes to survival, and we knew this from our survival game, where you lost in the woods, one of the most important things you have to find is water, because you can survive longer without food than you can without water. But, I mean, there's things that just sort of happen here. I mean, page 127, the boy finally asks the man about what was going on in the cellar, and he says, they're going to kill those people, aren't they? Yes. Why do they have to do that? I don't know. Are they going to eat them? I don't know. They're going to eat them, aren't they? Yes. And we couldn't help them because then they'd eat us too. Yes. And that's why we couldn't help them. Yes. Okay. So again, I think I mentioned in my last video how the role of the man and the boy, they're kind of meeting in the middle here. So the boy is finding more of his voice. He's understanding more about the world. And you'll be able to see later in the book how, I mean, the boy's always had like some sort of hope, but that hope kind of gets to be more like cynical, I guess, where he's like, oh yeah, so we had to get out of there because we would get eaten too, right? And man's like, yeah, and it's like, yeah, okay. So the boy's kind of getting more jaded, I guess. All right, but again, gonna skip ahead. I do have a few book notes throughout the rest of the pages. On page 130, the man's still going through that house. He's taking everything he can. He sees books and he looks at one really quick and then he puts it back. And the book note I made is that there's no use for art, and the only thing that's valuable about, paintings on the wall or books on the shelf is just their ability to burn at this point. On page 133, one of the comments I have at the very bottom of the page is, crossing the grass, he felt half faint and he had to stop. He wondered if it was from smelling the gasoline. Boy was watching him. How many days to death? 10? Not so many more than that. He couldn't think. So, even throughout this book, my note is, as he gets closer to death, the sentences get shorter and simpler. Kind of like, almost like he's drunk, because if you were dying, your brain wouldn't have very much power to construct long, full sentences. So it's going to be short, quick. It's like your brain sort of, firing one-offs. Okay, but finally, on page 137, we get to the important, meaty bit. He led the boy out into the yard, trailing the black smoke from the lamp. He put the pistol in his belt and picked up the spade and began to chop the hasp out of the plywood. All right, so he sees another sort of trapdoor. He wedged the corner of the blade under it and pried it up, and then knelt and took the hold of the lock, twisted the whole thing loose, and pitched it into the grass. He pried the blade under the door and got his fingers under it, and then stood and raised it up. Dirt went rattling down the boards. He looked at the boy. "You all right?" he said. The boy nodded mutely, holding the lamp in front of him. The man swung the door over and let it fall on the grass. Rough stairs carpentered out of 2x10s leading down into the darkness. He reached and took the lamp from the boy. He started to descend the stairs, but then he turned and leaned and kissed the child on the forehead. So, I mean, this is very, very parallel to the cellar. I mean, there's a trapdoor with a lock that the man chops off with a shovel, and they open the door and all they see is darkness. And so, I mean, imagine how you would be feeling. You saw this pit with people with their limbs chopped off of them and being used for food, and you knew you had to get out of there, and so now they're kind of doing it again. So once again, it's one of those things where if this were a movie, the creepy music would be coming back, and it would be, the slow building suspense, and you'd be shouting, don't go in there, don't go in there, oh my god, I can't believe you're so stupid. But then in even the very next paragraph on page 138, it heightens the tension. The bunker was walled with concrete block, a poured concrete floor laid over with kitchen tile. There were a couple of iron cots with bare springs, one against either wall, with mattress pads rolled up at the foot of them in army fashion. He turned and looked at the boy crouched above him, blinking in the smoke rising up from the lamp. And then he descended to the lower steps and sat and held the lamp out. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Oh my God." "What is it, Papa?" "Come down. Oh my God, come down." So, I mean, we hear this, oh my God, and we're like, oh God, what did he find? Like, what could be worse than the cellar? And then the very next sentence in the very next paragraph, crate upon crate of canned goods, tomatoes, peaches, beans, apricots, canned hams, corned beef, hundreds of gallons of water in 10-gallon plastic jerry jugs, paper towels, toilet paper, paper plates, plastic trash bags stuffed with blankets. He held his forehead in his hand. "Oh my God," he said. He looked back at the boy. "It's all right," he said. "Come down." So they found their salvation. They're starving. They're like 10 days out from dying, and now they find this, bounty. And that's really what I wanted you to get at with the assignment from yesterday is we have this scene of unimaginable horror, people, not even just being used for food, but people like being butchered alive for food, and the men and the boy, they're seeing no way out. They're seeing, they're dying, and they find the true horrors of this world. And now, now they have their salvation. And, maybe you could even kind of use that religious symbolism if you wanted to, or it's like, well, in order to find true salvation, some people have to go through the pits of hell. And the man and the boy just did that. I guess I realized one thing I forgot to talk about with the cellar scene is, and one thing that happened in the assignment is I asked you to talk about how Cormac McCarthy uses omission of detail. And it's kind of like in horror movies where during the cellar scene, he tells you that people, have their legs cut off to the hip and then cauterized, blackened so they don't bleed out. But other than that, we don't really see the people who did it. We don't get as graphic a detail as there could have been. It could have been written very, very, very gory, but it's more, Cormac McCarthy could have said, could have shown people being, boiled in the cauldron or whatever, but he omitted those details so that he could leave it up to people's imaginations, right? Because what people imagine usually is a lot more kind of terrifying than what you could ever be shown. It's kind of like that suspense that we talked about before school ended, where Alfred Hitchcock said, you could say that there's a bomb under the table. The bomb could go off and you'd be shocked for like a minute or two. But if you show the people the bomb and then you kind of have them move around it, then it's like, no. Well, Cormac McCarthy was sort of doing that where he's like, there's this cellar or there's evidence of these people in their cellar, and the man and the boy are kind of hanging around that property, and you're like, get out of there. Oh my God. You know that there's cannibals. But now this bunker scene kind of comes as like a beacon of light, like hope. And so I also, with a post-it note, I marked off page 139 and called it bunker scene. And then sort of the last thing that I did want to talk about a little bit and mark off was on page 146. When they're finally settling down, the man had given the boy a bath. Or no, he's about to give the man and boy a bath, but they see food and they don't want to overdo it, but the man kind of sets up a little dinner or whatever. And on page 145, the man says, go ahead. He said, don't let it get cold. What do I eat first? So he doesn't even know how to eat properly. Whatever you like. Is this coffee? Yes, here, you put the butter on your biscuits like this. Okay. Are you all right? I don't know. Do you feel okay? Yes. What is it? Do you think we should thank the people? So my little book note here is praying. The man, he has trouble believing in God. The boy doesn't really know anything about God, but this sort of deliverance from their starvation and stuff is the closest they're going to get to this sort of concept of God. And so the boy is kind of coming upon the concept of prayer without ever having prayed before. And so the man says, the people who gave us all this. Well, yes, I guess we could do that. Will you do it? Why don't you? I don't know how. So the concept of thanks and gratitude is so foreign in this world that the boy doesn't know how to thank people. Not even the concept of praying, but he doesn't know how to thank people. So the man says, yes, you do. You know how to say thank you. And he says, "Dear people, thank you for all this food and stuff. We know that you saved it for yourself, and if you were here, we wouldn't eat it no matter how hungry we were, and we're sorry you didn't get to eat it.